A Netflix show that's always been spot on recreating the decade of my childhood had a glaring omission and addition in Season 3. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. This is Breakpoint. Planck's constant is the amount of energy carried by a photon with the frequency of its electromagnetic wave. Now, for the curious, it's 6.62607015 times 10 to the negative 34th Joule seconds. I have no idea what any of that means. Now, a curious thing about Planck's constant, however, is that it changes every few years as physicists make even more precise measurements. Now, I'd venture to guess that a few million more people know about Planck's constant today than did just a month ago. That's because it was a featured part of the final episode of Stranger Things' third season. For those who don't know about Stranger Things, it's a sci-fi thriller series set in the Midwestern town of Hawkins in the 1980s, where mad government scientists accidentally open up a door to another dimension, letting all the monsters in. In the third season, the cast of middle school heroes use Planck's constant in order to break a secret Russian code and save Hawkins from its latest interdimensional infestation. There's just one problem. As sharp-eared and exceptionally nerdy fans noticed, the value of Planck's constant used on the show was from 2014. Back in 1985, when the show was set, it was officially different by a couple of decimal points. Because the hit Netflix series is known for an uncanny accuracy in depicting the 1980s, the fact that Stranger Things flubbed a bit of science trivia made the news. But what's gone unmentioned are a couple of other glaring anachronisms in the show's third season, which almost perfectly recreates the culture of the small-town America when I was growing up. Music, gaming arcades, nauseating neon clothes, and of course, teenagers hanging out in the town's brand-new shopping mall. The show's nostalgia is at times overwhelming. But as one pastor pointed out on Facebook, the show almost completely leaves out religion. Back in the 1980s, suburban Indiana would have been filled with Christianity. Churches with signs advertising Sunday's message, praying before meals, families actually going to church. These all would have been common. Yet of the four main families involved in the show, the only hint we get that anyone is in the least bit religious is a funeral in Season 1 conducted by a minister. In a show that goes way out of its way to recreate small-town life in the 1980s, this out-of-place secularism is a bigger oversight than a couple of digits in Planck's constant. But there's more. I've wondered now for 3 seasons whether the show would eventually submit to having an obligatory LGBTQ character. And they did in Season 3, adding a lesbian character who, in her strangely timed coming out, talks about her sexuality in a way that feels kind of far too 2019. As one self-identified gay commenter on Facebook remarked, a teenager in a small town in the 1980s wouldn't even have the vocabulary to come out the way that this character does. And yet the show's writers included it, with loud praise from secular media. For a series known for its unpredictable and opaque plot, the political priorities in Stranger Things were all too clear this season. And for a series known for its accurate retelling of the 1980s, this scene came across like a wristwatch in Braveheart. Wrong time, wrong place. Now, please don't take this as either an endorsement or a rejection of the show. I'll say, as I mentioned on Breakpoint this week, Stranger Things isn't a family show. There's smoking, drinking, plenty of language, and occasional teen sex. But Season 3 reminds us, as C.S. Lewis once said, that the most dangerous ideas in a culture are not the ones argued, but the ones that are assumed. Stories can powerfully assume ideas. And unless we've got a strong sense of discernment, things will appear normal that, well, shouldn't. And the fact that fans noticed a minute mistake about quantum theory while largely accepting the show's embedded secularism and its up-to-date LGBT lingo, well, that says a lot about us. Stranger Things is about contact with another dimension, a world radically different from our own. On these two issues, it's strangely out of touch with the world that many of us grew up in and that we remember. That world, unlike the Upside Down filled with horrifying monsters, I guess is just too strange for entertainers in 2019 to even imagine. For Breakpoint, I'm John Stonestreet.